God moves, the natural outcome is praise. We see this ring true in the life of Deborah, Israel's fourth judge. She is a mighty leader who inspires the battle that leads to victory, and she leads the people to sing and praise the Lord. Her story is covered in just a few chapters of the Bible, but it is within a pattern that fills the book of Judges as the Israelites do whatever is right in their own eyes and experience judgment for living counter to God's instructions. The people suffer and cry out for deliverance, and the Lord intervenes. Then the people rejoice. This happens over and over again in the book of Judges. The time of Judges extended from the end of the conquest of the Promised Land until the selection of Saul as Israel's first king. 1 Kings 6:1 indicates a period of 480 years between the Exodus and the fourth year of Solomon's reign. Additionally, Judges 11:26 suggests a period exceeding 300 years for the judges. The exact length of the period depends on whether one prefers an early or late date of the Exodus and conquest. In general, we can say the time of the judges was approximately 1400 to 1050 BC. Many events occurred in those few hundred years. The book of Ruth depicts a famine stricken family forced to journey from Bethlehem in order to find work and sustenance in Moab. Several interesting bits of information arise from Ruth's story related to the time of the judges. First, in Ruth 1:15, Naomi's daughter-in-law Orpah had returned to her people and to her God. Ruth, however, vowed to stay with Naomi, accepting her people and her God. Second, during the time of the judges, both Israelites and their neighbors believed each people group had its own gods. Israel was monotheistic. Their God was Yahweh. The other nations worshipped multiple gods. Third, the common people of the land were agrarians, surviving off the land, raising meager crops, and having a semi nomadic lifestyle tied to finding grazing land for sheep and cattle. Life was hard. The book of Judges records at least one tribal migration. The tribe of Dan, originally allotted land near the Philistine coast, migrated to the region of Laish, about 20 miles north of the Sea of Galilee. They became nomads for the sake of securing a more peaceful homeland. The story of Samson, an isolated and troubled deliverer, preceded this migration. Though Samson kept the Philistines in check through his extraordinary strength, the Philistines continued to pressure the tribe of Dan after his death, prompting their migration to Laish. They built their own city and set up a carved image, presumably to worship. The carved image was there the entire time the house of God was in Shiloh, revealing the time of the judges as being one of religious syncretism. The occasion of Saul's selection as Israel's first king marked the end of the time of the judges. Samuel, the last judge, asked to be declared honorable in all aspects of his leadership as Saul took the reins of power. The book of 1 Samuel then describes the time of the judges as one in which the Israelites forgot the Lord their God. Each episode of forgetfulness resulted in oppression at the hands of an enemy nation. As their faithfulness to Yahweh waned, their idolatrous worship of Baal and Asherah intensified. Apparently, this cyclical problem persisted well into the monarchical period as well, being condemned by the 8th century prophet Hosea in Israel and by Jeremiah in Judah a century later. When the Israelites first entered the land of Canaan, they marched in with a belief that Yahweh had delivered them from Egyptian bondage and had made them his covenant people. Just as the Lord had delivered them from Pharaoh at the Red Sea, so Moses promised God would fight for them during the conquest of the Promised Land. The conquest under the leadership of Joshua was deemed Yahweh's victory. According to Judges 2:7, the Israelites worshiped Yahweh throughout the lifetimes of Joshua and the elders who outlived him. The firsthand experiences of seeing the Lord's great works emboldened the people to be faithful. Tragically, as Joshua and his generation passed from the scene, the next generation did not know the Lord or his works on their behalf. The brutal realities of having to squeeze out a crop from an often stubborn land prompted the Israelites to enhance their chances by worshiping the gods of the people around them. In Canaan, the non-Israelites worshipped Baal, the storm god, and his female counterpart, Asherah. The Israelites erroneously believed that worshiping Baal would guarantee the rains needed for their crops, and that worshiping Asherah would guarantee the fertility and productivity of the land. Apparently, at times they worshipped Baal and Asherah to the extent of forgetting Yahweh altogether. At other times, they apparently worshipped both Yahweh and Baal, seeing no problem with a syncretistic both and approach to religion. Additional forms of idolatry also occurred during the time of the judges. For example, Judges 17 recounts the story of a man named Micah who stole 1,100 pieces of silver from his mother. Upon returning the silver, his mother consecrated the silver to the Lord. She then promptly commissioned a silversmith to cast the metal into the form of an idol, which Micah then enshrined in his home. The roll call of the faithful in the book of Hebrews names 4 judges: Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah. They serve as a sampling of faithful people whom the Lord used to restore his people during the time of the judges. The Lord used Gideon to usher in a 40-year period of peace after he defeated the Midianites. Barak, with Deborah's encouragement, was able to defeat Sisera and his king Jabin of Hazor. Samson, perhaps the least competent of all the judges, was Yahweh's servant in delivering Israel from Philistine oppression. The Lord also used Jephthah to subdue the Ammonites. The book of Judges mentions 12 by name. Modern commentators refer to 6 of them as major judges because of the importance attached to their administrations. These major judges were Othniel, Ehud, Deborah, and Barak, Gideon, Jephthah, and Samson. The 6 named minor judges are Shamgar, Tola, Jair, Ibzan, Elon, and Abdon. Most of these judges were military leaders who marshaled Israel's forces to fight against whatever nation was oppressing them at a given time. In the case of Deborah, she provided the spiritual and moral encouragement for her general Barak, who carried out the military campaigns. During the time of the judges, not all of the tribes necessarily fought in each of the battles, though they no doubt did perceive themselves as a homogeneous kinship group. For example, according to Judges 4, Barak summoned only the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali to fight against Sisera and his forces. Similarly, Jephthah seems to have summoned warriors from part of the tribe of Manasseh and from among the Gileadites. Samson, though, was a solo act. We consider the time of the judges to be an era in which the Lord used charismatic military leaders to deliver his people from oppressing nations. In each case, Yahweh raised up the oppressing nations in order to discipline his wayward people. Only by Yahweh's prompting did the judges arise to deliver his people. From the biblical writer's perspective, then, the time of the judges was marked by fluctuations between the faithfulness and unfaithfulness of God's people. When they sinned against the Lord, he sent oppressing nations to discipline them. When the people cried out to Yahweh, he sent liberating judges to drive the oppressors out of the land. All along, the common people worked the arduous land to secure a meager crop to survive another day. When we read the Bible, we have the luxury of skimming over hundreds of years in just a few minutes. The various ups and downs of an entire lifetime can be covered in a few sentences. For most of us watching this video, we've been in a period of blessing for decades. It's really easy to forget the fragility of our existence on earth. It may help to remember that the period of the judges followed the conquest of the Promised Land. The Israelites enjoyed this land of milk and honey for a time, but slowly lost their moral compass. The dark centuries that followed are classified by scholars as terribly barbaric. Are we in the same transition phase? Why do we assume our country will remain free? Our fields will be rich with harvest, and our God will rain down his blessings and favor. As a nation, how often do we turn to false gods for provision? How often do we sing praises to science or art or other achievements without properly and rightfully crediting God? We may not have a victorious battle to celebrate as Deborah did, but we do serve a God who is sustaining and orchestrating all things, keeping us from a battle like Deborah's and kindly moving and acting on our behalf. He is worthy of our praise.